Hey everybody, Ozark Gilman here. So that's right. This article says that science confirmed that men are in fact idiots. Is this actually true? Like, really, the author of this article is talking about in comparison to women, and because she opens it up. Well, as women have always known, yes, it turns out men are in fact idiots. So let's just look at the facts here, whether or not that's true. On the one hand, if you have a random classroom, split it down the middle, and this is just by the raw data. And by the way, this was put out by Shape Magazine, Leftist Rag, and it got downvoted pretty hard. Who's the article by? Rachel Schultz. Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense. Um, but anyway, if you were to take a classroom, girls' classroom with boys, odds are that the girls would be about average intelligence and the boys would be more split toward one side or the other. Sure, the bulk of them tend to be more closer to the average of the local area they're in, but there would the vast majority of the highly intelligent people in the classroom would be boys, but also the vast majority of the less intelligent people in the classroom would also be boys. Boys tend to vary more toward one end of the spectrum than the other. Those with lower IQ might be higher in survival instinct, what we'd call quote unquote street smart, etc. Those on the higher end of the intelligence spectrum, especially married by IQ, measured by IQ, would tend to be a little bit perhaps lower in survival skills. Is why they have to stop and think about things a little bit more ahead of time, knowing they might be lacking that. And reasoning skills, which typically is the greatest measure of this, is by IQ, which doesn't measure everything. There's some different types of measurements of intelligence. The biggest predictor of intelligence. So in other words, the article is not really accurate. It's only half right, but it's not accurate because it doesn't represent the entire picture. Yes, most unintelligent people are going to be men, not women. But most and vast majority of intelligent people, more on the higher end of the IQ spectrum, are of course going to be men, and very very few women as well. The reason why women tend to, and this is why the article of this, especially probably a third wave feminist, is really not going to like the reason why women do tend to have an average IQ. Women who tend to be higher IQ tend to worry more and not have as much children. They worry more about the state of society, etc., around them. They might also be able to serve other functions in their community. Again, nature designs, I would say God designs and engineers everything in this way for a reason. The reason women tend to be average intelligence across the board and not as much one or the other, higher or lower, is because they have to take care of and raise children. Overly intelligent, very highly intelligent, might worry too much, tend to have less kids. Much less intelligent, they tend to not have as much kids and have more trouble raising kids, might be much, much more stressed, in the process of raising children and all that. So again, these are all factors to consider. Now, the biggest predictor of intelligence seems to be, like the whole on average and everything, the region of the world and the ethno-cultural group from which you come. Because the same ethnic groups have pretty, very remarkably similar levels of intelligence, even manifest in the same ways, all around the world. Excellent example is the European diaspora, just because we are one of the biggest, around the world. We have among the highest in the world, perhaps the highest as far as highest IQ is, especially when it comes to creativity, inventiveness. Makes sense why the vast majority, almost all of the high tech inventions of the last few centuries, and really a vast bulk of them several centuries before that, which even though a lot of them also came from East Asia, came from us. East Asians tend to have a very, very high, just straight up raw IQ. They have about a 105 average IQ. And again, the men can be higher or lower, tend to be higher or lower, mostly in the middle. Women tend to be middle across the board. But they tend to have a little bit more trouble with engineering, creativity, etc., compared to, say, the Europeans and the diaspora. When you look at Americans, for instance, non-Hispanic white Americans, because they throw a lot of Middle Eastern North Africans and count them as white. They throw a lot of mestizo Hispanic in there and consider them white. Specifically when it comes to IQ scores, which lowers our average drastically when they count all them. It also makes our crime rate average go up. So it kind of shows you sort of the anti-white bent in the way these numbers are calculated. But these mostly come from the social sciences, and the social sciences are extremely left-wing and very, very anti-Western, anti-white. Kind of shows you the way they do it. They did say that Ashkenazi European Jewish IQ was extremely high, like average 115 or something like that. But the data from that was very limited, very selective. Showed kids only from a very, very high end school very early on. And again, it kind of skewed whereas Israel, for instance, which is a Jewish ethno state, has an average IQ of like 94, so way, way below that. Um, so it kind of shows that the data on that was kind of seemed to be fibbed a little bit to make it look a lot higher. Jewish Ashkenazi Jewish people do tend to score high in verbal IQ, but not as much in spatial reasoning, etc. You know, even though Albert Einstein was obviously brilliant, he seemed to have stolen a lot of his ideas apparently, but he was a brilliant person all the way around, mathematics, engineering, everything. But from the European diaspora, you tend to get your Ben Franklins, the Isaac Newtons, everything that we have produced. When you eliminate the Middle East, North African, mestizo population, etc., that are counted in our IQ, the average white American IQ, being of ethnic European descent, rather, is about 103, it appears like. So almost on par with East Asia. East Asian Americans, they tend to be very high. Perhaps even the higher end of the intelligent people in their populations tend to be the ones who immigrate to the U.S. Much the same as India, as in South Asian Indians. They're like 108, among the highest on the planet. Again, Europeans tend to score higher in spatial reasoning and all that. Now, Sub-Saharan Africa, that is a whole different ballpark. North Africa, you can get around mid-80s, all that. Sub-Saharan Africa, that can range on the high end of like average 85 in Nigeria, all the way down to like upper 60s, 70s. So again, the boys do tend to be more toward one end of the spectrum or the other on IQ, with the bulk of them around the average, depending on the ethnocultural group and where they live, and the culture that they grow up in. And the women tend to be average across the board for their population. So no, the article's not really accurate. Some of the data has seemed to have been fibbed a little bit when you really, really look into it. And some of the seems to be fibbed actually to kind of appear more negative toward my own ethno group, because America, the average IQ is lowering, but don't worry, it's not necessarily because, yeah, some kids may have had some developmental trouble because of the teachers' unions trying to force kids out of school during COVID. That did hurt their development a little bit, but they can make up the vast majority of that in a few years, hopefully, with parents and teachers paying close attention, hopefully not in the public schools. And but the lowering IQ in America is actually due to demographic change, not the old stock population just getting dumber. It's largely genetic, passed down from the parents, and then there's the environmental potential that can be maximized or not maximized, especially during early childhood years. Early childhood education is extremely foundational. We're really getting those in there. I was very fortunate when I was a kid. I had access to a whole lot of books, and that really helped me out. I was really motivated to read a lot, learn a lot, and I just enjoyed it. Which is why I enjoy crunching data and numbers, including the non-PC stuff. I cover culture, demographics, everything on this channel. But no, men are not dumber than women overall. You're going to find more dumb men than you are going to find dumb women, but you're also going to find a whole lot more intelligent men than you are going to find intelligent women. Women tend to be average across the board, but again, with average IQ, they tend to be higher in emotional intelligence and not as high in logical intelligence and progressive thinking, and spatial and engineering type of thinking as well. So even most of the boys that would be a little bit lower IQ might score a little bit higher in logic, just pure reasoning and logic, than those women of average intelligence as well. Maybe a little bit of narcissism is part of the reason, in modern culture especially and everything, is part of the reason that women would think they tend to be more average or higher in intelligence. This is Ozark Yeoman. Hope that kind of clears us up. Y'all have a good one.